So Cancer, your December 2025 forecast begins with a cluster of energy in the part of your chart to do with life's practicalities. On the screen now, I'm showing the event chart, and that includes the Sun. Now you can see the position of your ruler, the moon, is very high in the sky. So you'll feel this could be quite close to the surface as you come into December, but not in a bad way. If you're wanting, for example, even at this late part of the year, to consider what you might do around your job or employment prospects for 2026, I think you could be in some ways pushed a little bit to become much more conscious of what seems very onerous to you, what's burdensome, and what really speaks to the part of your nature that would set you free, because your nature is very much to do with having a soul purpose. And if you look at the position of Jupiter in your sign, it may be in retrograde, but it does forge a very constructive link to Saturn in the ninth house of your chart. So your knowledge or your desire to expand your world, if it in any way just seems crushed by people's expectations of what you are going to do for them, whether it is to do with colleagues or the nature of your exact role, or it is to do with your home organisation, the domestic chores and so forth. If you do just feel it's all a bit onerous early in this month, I think the full moon, which occurs on the 4th and forges a T-square with the nodal axis, particularly the point of destiny, the North Node in Pisces, is just reminding you of what your philosophies are, because your philosophies are very important, particularly your values, to what can guide you this month. And I feel that there is the potential to feel really quite compromised right into December. And the reason for that is that as Mars moves forwards from the position it starts the month, which can give you extra stamina, as it moves forwards, it pretty soon comes into an abrasive right angle with Saturn. Now Saturn can be about restriction, and Mars in Sagittarius is definitely a freedom lover. So if you're not really enjoying what you do within those daily routines, then I feel that Saturn makes you much more conscious of that, and that could show itself through low energy. Now I know it's a very busy time of the year, particularly if you have children. There's all their events. There's can be meetups and social events, of course, to do with the festivities, and everyone finds this part of each year at times rather demanding. But ordinarily Mars would have given you a boost, but because it comes into that right angle, Neptune can dissipate the vitality of Mars, Saturn can restrain. And just trying to keep everyone happy just may feel like a little bit of an empty process. But on the 10th, Neptune, which has been retracing its steps since July the 4th, of course it's now back into Pisces, that does go direct, which is good, because if there has been some confusion that's been quite powerful this year, it wouldn't be a surprise. It might have been about your values, it could have been around your work, but the 11th sees Mercury return to the sign of Sagittarius. Not its favourite location, but if you do need to apply a bit more precision to cut through the fog that can come from Neptune's square with Mars, that will surely help. But also you are going to see on the 15th Mars move into your opposite sign. And if you are encountering at this part of the month people who do seem to expect a lot of you and may pile more and more responsibilities on you, the great thing about Mars on the 7th house cusp is it can help you to assert your boundary in a much more assertive way. And although we have Mercury emerging from its shadow on the 17th, I feel at this point of the month it's the Sun which starts to square off with Saturn and Neptune, replacing Mars. And that also can be very complex, because the Sun in the sign of Sagittarius is a freedom. It's a freedom lover, but the 6th house for you is about those obligations, responsibilities and chores. So that in itself is a conflict, And because of the square with the part of your chart that is to do with your desire to do as you wish, to be more spontaneous, to have variety, any kind of onerous routine could really be testing. So it's a new moon which could ask you to think very carefully as you plan your New Year's resolutions, if you do that, about changes you could make in terms of how much exercise you get, what you're eating and drinking. Little changes can be actually very important and very helpful. Think of virtue at this stage of the month, even if you do feel penned in by different demands. But the 21st is going to see the winter solstice, which for you is very constructive because that's your sector of relating as well, but it is afflicted by Neptune. So the next 3 months through to the spring equinox could still see you a little bit confused, particularly about professional relationships. But it's Venus's turn at this stage of the month to clash with Saturn and Neptune. And it may feel that whatever you try to do to please people, it's never going to be enough. And that can be very deflating. But Venus follows the Sun and Mars into your 7th house. But Venus loves being in the 7th house. Okay, she's a bit more pragmatic in the sign of Capricorn, but I feel the last 10 days of this month can remind you of the connections that are truly important to you. Because if earlier in the month it has felt like a bit of a futile process, trying to spin so many plates, and even if you have been actually spinning loads of plates, perhaps more than many other people, not really feeling appreciated or recognised for that, or just feeling totally crushed, that soul expression which is so enriching to you, if that's not really featured, I think the latter part of December can just remind you of who you need to link with. It doesn't have to be romantic, but if you are wanting to connect with someone, if that's something that does appeal to you, the chances of a clinch under the mistletoe are definitely increased by Mars and Venus being in your 7th house along with the Sun. But as you come to the end of this year, I think what you're going to be thinking about a lot as you prepare yourself for 2026 is greater equilibrium and balance between what you need to protect and represent as an individual and where you need to connect and collaborate with others. Because I think the chances are the early parts of this month are going to show up for you what's simply no longer working. You know, you can't pour from an empty jar. And having Saturn and Neptune in your 9th house come into the end of their huge journeys, Neptune 165 years on the 26th of January, Saturn 29.5 years on the 14th of February. These are big endings for you. Big endings in terms of your philosophies, your desire to travel, anything to do with higher education. And as you enter into a new cycle for the longer term, obviously we had a brief sojourn earlier in the year with both Neptune and Saturn in your sector of success and work and ambition. I feel you're going to be much more in tune with what you really want to do. And if there were some breakthroughs, or you raised your profile, or you had some successes but it didn't quite work out as you wanted, you'll be much better prepared by the time we get to the middle of February from the practice that you had last time. But one of the things that those along with the North Node that Saturn and Neptune are asking you to be conscious of is your need to be in touch with what really is your values. And if those values are too conflicted this month by the demands that limit your scope to be a free spirit, that's really the theme of this month. If you've yet to watch your year 2026 deep dive forecast, please see the link below this video. If you've yet to order your personal forecast for year 2026, you can do so now. You'll also get your life roadmap report, which helps you to understand the patterns that are played out in your life so far. A combination of the two will help you to plan your moves in the months ahead so much more effectively. 30% off, free gift of your general, love, Chinese and Indian written forecast for each of the 12 signs. Please see the link below for more.